This is Steve Jewin for Glove Up or Shut Up on AngryMarks.com. When Peter H. and I recorded this show on December 21st, 2016, the news had not yet broken that Cris Cyborg potentially failed a drug test administered on December 5th by USADA. Obviously, this will affect her career going forward. She may no longer be fighting in UFC. If this turns out to be an upheld suspension, she will no doubt appeal and or get the B sample tested. But anything we had to say about potential title fights for her or her future career should be borne in consideration of the fact that we did not know about this drug test failure at the time the show was recorded. Thank you.
And welcome everybody to another episode of Glove Up or Shut Up right here on AngryMarks.com. My name is Peter H. and I'm joined once again by my co-host from the Omaha, Nebraska, Stevie J.
If you were going to say the frozen north, you would not be terribly inaccurate because it got to a low of negative 11 just a couple of days ago.
That's Fahrenheit, folks. That's bloody cold.
It was freaking cold. It was, do not go outside without double everything. Like, you wear a hoodie, you wear a jacket over the hoodie. You wear gloves, you wear insulators underneath the gloves. You wear socks, you wear long johns. You wear another pair of socks over the long johns and the socks. That's how cold it was.
And for Canadians, it was just a normal day of the week.
Yeah, I suppose it probably was.
I was shoveling the snow in a t-shirt and jeans the other day, and it was like minus, 10 or 15 Celsius. So it was below freezing here too, and it was like, this is nothing. Wait till it's minus 35 with the wind chill. Then you start to, people's hair started turning white, and it was like, oh God.
Yeah, it has actually gotten that cold here before. In fact, there are times, Michelle and I joke about this, that when we went to college, they wouldn't cancel classes for anything, and it would get so cold walking to classes that icicles would grow on your face while you were trying to get to class, because you were sweating and it would freeze on your face immediately.
Mm-hmm. The best thing to do is take a pot of boiling water, and you can just hold the handle and just throw the water in the air. It will freeze to snow and come down crystallized before it hits the ground.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen people do that plenty of times. The problem is that people get really stupid with it, and they go and microwave a cup of water, and if you're not careful and you use distilled water that doesn't have any impurities in it, that stuff turns to steam instantly, and you can burn yourself trying to throw it in the air, because all it takes is one little thing, and poof, it's instant steam.
Stupidity in human beings? No, come on now.
Exactly. So, if you're gonna do stupid human tricks, please don't imitate things you see on YouTube. They don't always turn out so well.
No. Alright, so we've got Bellator, UFC, and lots of news to get to, Stevie, but I think we should start with Bellator this week. They had their show out in Ireland with let's say a predictable main event.
Yeah, exactly what I thought it was going to be, and exactly the way I thought it would wind up, with King Mo using his wrestling ability to take down Satoshi Ishii over and over again. He never let it become a boxing match. He never let it become a judo match. He did what a small heavyweight against a larger man should do, take him down repeatedly.
But it was... Do you blame Ishii for not changing his game plan or having a better defense, or is King Mo that good that he stuck to his game plan, and it wasn't a matter of taking him down and holding him there for 3 rounds. It was more just, it's a superior skill here.
No, you're right. Ishii was able to get up, and Ishii was able to move around the octagon with him and was pressuring at times, but like you said, it was the superior wrestling technique. Even if Ishii would get up, Mo would just take him right back down again. It was Ishii's inability to stop the takedowns that was the story of the fight.
Was the crowd too happy with this, or?
I think the wind was already out of their sails because they had seen all the hometown favorites at this point, so they just weren't that into it. I mean, it was almost an apathetic reaction, and that's not really because King Mo isn't a charismatic guy. It's because they had already seen what they wanted to see, and the fans that stayed for the main event were just kind of getting a bonus at that point. So they didn't love it, they didn't hate it. They might have booed a little near the end, but it seemed like any time they were really getting close to booing, they would just start chanting, "Ole, ole, ole, ole." Like, they would just go into business for themselves.
The old soccer chant.
Exactly.
All right. Well, let's talk about James Gallagher and Anthony Taylor.
Yes. Again, somewhat predictable. They gave him a 1-1 opponent and basically said, this is your fight. This is your home turf. You're from Strabane, but you're fighting in Dublin, so you're going to be huge here, kid. So you got this 1-1 fighter in front of you. All you got to do is do what you do best. And it took him a couple of rounds to do it, but eventually he got him to the ground and submitted him, and all of his finishes to date have been submissions. So really, once again, not surprising. You could predict it going in, and you would be absolutely right in your prediction.
I was happy with the effort that Taylor showed in this fight, though.
Well, I'll say this. Taylor was definitely gunning for a home run shot. He does have knockout power. His one win was a knockout. And that was both his strength and his weakness, was that he was dangerous enough that he could have rocked Gallagher at any time, but he was so predictable in going for it that it was easy for Gallagher to get out of the way of it.
So I think with Taylor needs to fine-tune a few things, but yeah, I had that home run hitter sense as well. I mean, it got him a win in the past with a knockout like that, but being in the cage with Gallagher, I think it shows that you need to be multifaceted to win in this sport.
And incidentally, if you hear me going back and forth between Gallagher and Gallagher, I blame the Cruiserweight Classic and 205 Live for that, because there's a guy in there named Gallagher.
All right, let's talk about Sinead Kavanagh against Elena Kalinidou.
Very late addition to the card. There was a fight that was supposed to happen that two opponents got scratched for, and so they finally just gave up and said, well, let's add a local fighter with some popularity on it. And Kavanagh fit the bill because she's from the Straight Blast Gym, the same as James Gallagher, the same as Conor McGregor, so she got a huge reaction coming out, and she had a completely dominant fight. Her opponent, Kalinidou, was 5-0, but clearly those 5 people she fought in Greece or the surrounding countries were not of the caliber of the Straight Blast Gym fighters. It was, no. You could see that it was the strength in particular. Kavanagh just woman handled her. She was just so much stronger and so much more, how do you put it, like, experienced in the right way. Like, the caliber of the people that she works out with are definitely on a different level.
Mm-hmm. It's how do I say this in a sports analogy? It's sort of like the Red Wings playing their farm team.
Right. You could just see the difference in class. It showed.
Mm-hmm. It did, absolutely. Daniel Weichel against Brian Moore.
I'm not surprised by the result, given this was another fight with a replacement opponent. I'm just surprised, actually, that it took that long in the first round, because once again, you could see the difference between the two of them. Daniel Weichel has almost 50 pro fights. This guy really knows what he's doing, and he was just hunting for a submission and finally got it in the right position and tapped Moore out, and you know, there was no way for him to survive for 15 more seconds. You might have thought, well, a different fighter, a better caliber fighter could have struggled and maybe loosened the grip or gotten an arm in between, choke, and found a way to wait it out till the horn. Not this guy.
Do you think with 5 seconds left he would have stayed in there?
I think the way that Weichel had it applied, he would have gotten a tap in 5 seconds, whether it was 4:44 or 4:54. I think he was tapping this guy.
All right. And Bama 27, Cameron Elsey against Dylan Tuck.
They didn't air this, but it was a 20-second fight. That's all I can tell you. I didn't see it.
I'm surprised they didn't bonus it.
I can't tell you, but they didn't, so that's all there is to say.
All right. Well, let's talk about UFC on Fox 22, Van Zandt and Watterson from Sacramento, California.
Well, we've finally seen that Van Zandt is only capable of rising to a certain level and no higher, because she, even though she had a really good fight with Rose Namajunas, a fight that she was losing the whole way, we were like, wow, she really has heart. You know, she's staying in there with Rose round after round. Well, Karate Hottie was not interested in playing that game. She's like, nope, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to take this girl's head off, and I'm going to finish her.
So somebody on this show, I'm not going to say who, said this was going to be a tough fight for Van Zandt and predicted this would happen. Who was it again? Who?
I believe that was you.
Yes. The rear naked choke applied by Waterson at 3:21 of the very first round spelled defeat for Paige Van Zandt. Did you notice when Waterson was going for the choke and she got her hooks in, she tilted her neck back and like basically looked up at the ceiling and was very relaxed as she was getting the hooks and getting it deeper and deeper, and then without even blinking, it was more just fighting to get that arm in under the chin, and then it was in deep, and it was almost like Waterson was like, all right, here we go, and she was able to pace herself, be like, okay, and thup, 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 and boom. And I don't believe I saw Van Zandt actually tap out. I think she might have passed out.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure if she did tap or not, but you were talking about how effortless that the Karate Hottie made it look.
Yeah.
You know what I chalk that up to?
What?
The age difference, because Michelle Waterson is 30 years old. She's been doing this for a long time. She was a star in Invicta before she ever came into UFC. She is really on point. I mean, she could take it's like Dominic Cruz. She could take a year off and come back and still be the same person because she knows the game that well by now. And I don't think it should be too much of a knock on Van Zandt. Obviously,
no.
She's going to go down the rankings. She's going to be looked at in a different light now. But 8 years from now, she could be what the Karate Hottie is at this moment.
Oh yeah, she's very young in the fight game. Give her time, absolutely. She will mature into a very excellent fighter. Waterson was like, it looked like she was tying on a pair of skates. It was like, and this goes here, and this goes here, and tap, tap, tap. But there was no tap. Mickey Gall against Sage Northcutt, and...
Now, this is a fight where I'm not going to say that give the kid more time and he might get better, because this is at least a couple of fights in a row now where Sage Northcutt has looked like he really doesn't belong in the UFC.
So, I'm going to say a word, and don't take this the wrong way. I'm going to say Sage Northcutt was exposed on this show. Not in a FCC violation way, exposed as in, what is he doing in this high level, like on this part of the card? What's he doing this high up? I mean, his last few fights have been underwhelming. Mickey Gall, it's going to sound weird, but I'm still not convinced on Mickey Gall. I had him winning this fight, but...
Well, there was reason to doubt at some points in the fight, because take whatever you will away from Sage, and he's not that great, and obviously needs a lot of work in all areas of his game, particularly his ground game and his submission defense and going for submissions. Those are all things he needs to completely reinvent about himself. But he did have some good moments in the stand-up. A few. And Mickey Gall, there were a couple of times where he was in danger because of that. So, Gall is the better fighter overall, but there was at least a chance for Sage to win it.
Every fighter's got a chance, Stevie, though. It's
right. But what you're saying is Mickey Gall is not the complete fighter, not yet. He's better than Sage, but he still has things to work on.
So, what I'm thinking is, now that we've seen Gall fight 2, quote, UFC fights, I consider the competition. I don't want to give him a true test like, someone in the top 15.
Right.
But I want to give him someone who has some experience in the octagon.
Well, he's angling for that because he called out the outlaw Dan Hardy,
who politely declined it. I don't know if Hardy's still fighting.
I don't think so. He's been doing commentary with John Gooden for the UK shows.
Well, it reminds me of another fighter we saw last week, the week before, Kelvin Gastelum. He fought in Toronto. He wants to fight Shogun.
All right, well, I mean, that's more likely to happen than Dan Hardy and Mickey Gall, so...
Yeah.
At least Shogun's still technically active, whereas Dan, by his own choice, doesn't want to be.
Now, Mickey Gall, as I said, pick somebody for his next fight, not in the top 15, with, I would say, at least a winning record in the UFC, and has at least, 3 fights in UFC. This can't be that hard to find him a decent opponent who we can see a true test here, because if he wins that fight, give him a shot at someone top 15, just see how he fares.
Right, I think that's fair. I think one more fight with somebody that's either much more experienced than him, but not in the top 15, or somebody that was previously top 15 and no longer is, somebody right around there. It's because we've seen him beat CM Punk, who literally offered nothing, and just about any fighter could have beat him, let alone Mickey Gall. So
you're not going to compare a fight that lasted less than 30 seconds.
That's just let me finish though.
Okay.
What I'm saying is he beat a guy anybody could beat, so that proved nothing.
Yeah.
And then he beat a guy that had some hype behind him, but as you said, has been exposed. So he beat a nothing guy. No offense to CM Punk, but in MMA, he's nothing. That's no reflection on him as a person or a pro wrestler or anything else, but in MMA, he's not that important. He was not good in that fight. And Sage had a name, but got exposed. So now he's got 2 wins over a nothing and a guy that's really not that good. So he needs that quality win. He needs to beat somebody that's considered a good fighter.
I don't want to spend too much on this, but CM Punk, I think his next fight will be in the UFC. That could be a bold prediction for next year. I think he will have one more fight.
Oh, he's training like he's going to have one more fight. And I think because of the change of ownership, it's actually more likely to happen than it was before.
So what I'm thinking is, I don't think it's beneficial to CM Punk to have him try to cherry pick his next opponent, because it did that with Mickey Gall and look what happened. You want to pick somebody that is an up-and-comer who can give CM Punk a fight, basically someone that UFC wants to bring in, but they're not quite sure on, so they want to have him basically sink or swim for the other guy.
Yeah,
and if Punk can win that fight, great. If the other guy wins, well then it's no harm, no foul, because the guy who we think should be in UFC just proved himself on a big stage against somebody who, okay, I'm going to hate saying this, but somebody who has lost his first fight and is looking for redemption.
Let me put it to you this way, and then we can move on, because we got a lot to talk about, and we do need to move on, but my way of doing it would be, look at the people who entered for a season of Ultimate Fighter in that weight class. Look at the guys who didn't make it past the, the interview portion. They weren't enough of a personality to get onto the show, but they had a decent record, 2-1 or 3-0. Give CM Punk somebody like that, or maybe even a guy that's 1-2, as long as he has 3 pro fights, but they don't let people on Ultimate Fighter unless they have a winning record. So, you're sorry we had to reject you for technical reasons because you don't have a winning record. Give him a guy like that.
You can call the show Pining for Punk.
I guess so. I won't name it. I'm just saying, you need to give Punk a more beatable opponent, because Mickey Gall was not that.
Well, we go from a fighter, CM Punk, who had 1 fight, to a guy who fought his last fight, Uriah Faber, beating Brad Pickett pretty convincingly, 30-26 across the board.
That first round was a massacre. That could have been stopped.
Yep. Was it a shock that Big John McCarthy was the referee for this fight?
Not at all. You know what actually in hindsight is the shock?
What's that?
That this wasn't the main event of the show.
Thank you. Why couldn't they put this as the main to send the crowd home happy?
Not just that. Not just send the crowd home happy. It's more important than anything else on this card, because this is a guy who's been in more major fights in that division than anybody else in the last 10 years. I mean, he hasn't been the champion, but he's always been the top guy that wasn't the champion. He's been that guy for a very, very long time now.
Alright, so do you think Pickett's done as well?
I wouldn't want to see him fight again after the beating he took.
No, he definitely took a beating. Speaking of beatings, Alan Jabin beat Mike Perry 30-27, 30-27, and 29-28.
I'm not surprised because I picked Joban, but at least one of the judges thought it was closer than I did, so I guess Mike Perry did win a round in there somewhere. You can tell me which one you think it was.
I had no idea. I had 30-27.
Yeah, so I don't know. The judges saw something I didn't or you didn't, so we move on.
All right, so let's go on to the prelims, and I don't know. I mean,
you're going to complain about these all being decisions other than Paul Craig and Luis Enrique da Silva, but let me tell you something. Before you start complaining about that, there were at least 3 of these fights on the prelims card that were really damn good. Even though they went the distance, they were fun, exciting, competitive fights.
As exciting as a 30-26, 30-27, 30-27 fight in Cole Miller and Mizuto Hirota was, I was more impressed with Leslie Smith and Irene Aldana.
No, that was the fight of the night. That literally, I'm not just saying it was, it actually got the bonus for it.
Yep.
They got 50,000 each, and they deserved it because they had a war.
Yeah, they absolutely did have a war, and I would pay money to see that fight again. I'm not sure that Aldana wants that fight right now, but that's just me.
I think Leslie Smith earned herself some respect in that fight, because I knew she was the real deal going back to Invicta, but I think there were people in UFC who still thought of her as, like, bottom of the women's bantamweight division that weren't really treating her like she was special. She is something special, and she showed it.
I want to see them fight again, and I'm not sure if I want to see, like, this fight. Yeah, I want to see it again, but I'm curious to see if they don't fight each other, who they fight next. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Now, as far as other names on this fight, I mean, I had high hopes on Colby Covington and Brian Barberena. That
one was a little too one-sided. Covington just took him down over and over again. That was not one of the fights I was focused on. I would say Emmett Holtzman was a surprisingly good fight.
What about Eddie Wineland beating Takei Mizugaki?
I missed the fight pass, but I heard it was a pretty nasty TKO on Wineland's part, which he basically cut a post-fight interview and said, I've been reborn as a fighter, so hard to argue with him when he wins in that dominating a fashion, but I'll have to go back and watch Fight Pass to see how dominating it was. But 304 of the first round, for the record.
Alright, so let's talk some news before we walk into this week's...
Well, we can't just walk away from UFC on Fox 22 just yet.
I know, I tried.
You know, because you talked about violations of the FCC.
I knew you were going there.
Yeah, I was letting it slide until now, but Dominic Cruz and Cody Garbrandt were trying their hardest to get themselves fined.
Did they get fined?
I don't think so, because that censorship button was on full blast. There was like 25 seconds of dead air where we could see their lips moving and not hear a single thing they said.
Now, for those who didn't hear, there's actually a clip on YouTube where the unedited version, I believe, is still out there floating around somewhere.
Right, from the international broadcast, like in the United Kingdom and elsewhere, where they don't have to censor it because they don't have an FCC.
But those in North America, we were treated to the Jerry Springer version of the show. Holy crap!
Although, the parts that weren't censored out were gold. Like, when Dominic Cruz was asked who you ever beat, his response was priceless. He said, I beat all your teammates. I built a house off the money I made beating up all your teammates.
Paid for my house. I was like, well done.
That's line of the year. Dominic Cruz, well done, sir.
It's right up there with, what's his name? Chael's son. Conor McGregor, Chael's son, and Dominic Cruz. You need one more trash talker. I mean, geez, you could do the whole Cormier/Jones feud.
You know, I heard Dave and Brian talking about this. If Conor and Dominic were in the same weight class, the trash talking between them would be truly special. It would be something to behold.
It would be very interesting, and just think, Stevie, in a few weeks we're going to have two of the biggest shit talkers in the history of MMA go at it in Bellator.
That's right, January 21st at the Forum in Inglewood, but we'll talk about that more a little later.
Even UFC is scared to book a show on that day.
Well, they kind of ran out of options because they didn't have a main event for Anaheim, so it's going uncontested, but not for lack of trying on UFC's part.
Oh, man. Okay, so as far as the news is concerned, I mean, we don't have a big show this week because it's Christmas break in the schedule, and we got a big show next week to talk about, and we'll get there next week. We will do the huge preview. But before I mention that show, Stevie, are you, what's the word? Are you excited?
Are you entertained? Are you not entertained?
Yeah. The commercials for the Nunez-Rousey fight.
You know what? I'm actually more entertained by the photos that are going around on social media right now of how ripped up Ronda Rousey is.
Yeah, she's jacked.
Yeah. I don't know if that's going to actually work in her favor or not, but apparently psychologically she thinks that she's got to just be more shredded than Cyborg to make this fight work for her.
Now, they're having trouble selling tickets for this show.
I can't believe that. To be perfectly honest with you, if I lived anywhere near that market, I would be all over this.
The only thing I would say that might be scaring off people, the timing of the show, plus how much tickets are going for, perhaps. That could be a reason, too.
Price point could be a factor. Friday night on New Year's Eve weekend, that could be a factor. But as a pay-per-view purchase, I'm totally down with this.
But disposable income in December?
Yeah, I know, but everybody gets money for Christmas from relatives. It's worth spending $50-$60, or if not, go to a bar and pay cover and watch it, which I might just do.
There you go. Now, going back to Bellator, or it's not Bellator. Well, yeah, I guess you could say it's Bellator. It's Ryzen FF3, the Grand Prix, the semifinals.
They're
King Mo and
King
Crow
Mo
Cop.
over there, that's right.
King Mo and Crow Cop in one semifinal, and the other one has Heath Herring against Amir Al-Akbari.
All I could say is King Mo better do the exact same thing he did with Satoshi Ishii. Just double leg that man to the ground and not take any chances. Because you don't want to stand in front of Crow Cop and wait for a flying knee or a shoulder to hit you or a right fist of doom. You know, whatever Crow Cop wants to throw at you, it's going to hurt.
It's not pitter-patter.
No. He's
All
a big
right.
boy and he hits hard.
The only thing I'm worried about is King Mo's already looking forward and saying he thinks he's going to fight Amir in the finals.
Well, that's the confidence of King Mo. When you talk to the guy, he is naturally confident in his ability, and that's, other than title fights, that's served him pretty well, so it's hard to argue with him.
I never thought anybody would overlook Crow Cop.
Well, this is 2016 going on 2017. You know, you talked about Exposed a little bit earlier when you were talking about Sage Northcutt.
Mm-hmm.
I think his UFC run might have exposed Crow Cop a little bit. Not that I'm saying he's not a good fighter or a good kickboxer and that he's not dangerous on the whole, but I think in pride, he more had his, I wouldn't say handpicked opponents, but favorable matchups. I think other than with a couple of tournaments that he was in, I think Crow Cop was given a chance to showcase himself that other fighters might not get.
Speaking of Sage Northcutt, he is going back down to 155.
I did hear he was going to cut to lightweight. That might not be a bad move for him.
That's where he was dominant before, so I have no problem with that whatsoever.
Although if the weight cut doesn't work and he loses again, he might be in trouble.
Now, did they actually do the hair versus hair stipulation?
No, they did not. You didn't see anybody get their head shaved, so I don't know why you would think they did.
I heard it was going to be a fight, of hair versus hair fight, so.
No, the athletic commission was not going to allow that. This isn't pro wrestling.
No. Rose Namajunas wants to fight the Karate Hottie.
Yeah, well, that fight makes sense given their mutual opponents. I mean, I talked about Paige and Rose, and we just saw what happened to Paige in the fight with Karate Hottie, so it makes sense for her to fight Rose now.
Gilbert Burns is fighting Paul Felder at UFC 208 in Brooklyn.
Yes.
That's a good fight.
should be okay.
There was somebody, I'm trying to remember if I have it in my notes here. Gary Musasi. Oh boy.
Coincidentally enough, training partner of Satoshi Ishii.
He wants to fight Chris Weidman. Weidman says no. Musasi is trying to use the trash talk basically not to talk himself into a fight. Weidman said he still needs more rehab before fighting. So, Weidman needs more time for rehab after his last fight, so...
I will say that Musasi has stepped up his game in terms of cutting a promo and talking the talk to get himself fights. He was doing a pretty good job after his last win, so... I don't know if Weidman can do it because of his injuries, but I think Musasi will keep needling him until he gets what he wants.
That will be a good fight.
That would be a fun fight to watch.
I'm looking forward to it, but will it happen? I hope. Mm-hmm. I don't know. All right, so Mark Hunt. He is going to be fighting Alistair Overeem at UFC 209. Verbally agreed to it, the fight.
Yes.
So he wants a clause put into the contract that basically, if I don't get this clause, the fight ain't happening.
I can guess. I'm going to guess before you tell the audience.
Mm-hmm.
The clause is, win or lose, I can walk away from UFC.
Nope.
That's not the clause.
Nope.
All right, you tell me.
If Alistair tests positive for drugs, I get his purse.
I don't know if they're going to give him that stipulation.
Yeah. It would deter cheating, that's for sure. You mean I don't get anything if I get popped? Anything? I'm sure not touching the stuff then.
Well, in at least an argument in his favor, Brock Lesnar's win got overturned to a no contest, so you could say that fine that they levied against him for that, $250,000, you can make the argument that Mark Hunt should have gotten that.
So $250,000 to Brock Lesnar.
I know, it's chump change for that dude. I've said as much to anybody I've talked to.
Yeah, well, Brock's got 99 problems and Mark ain't one.
That's for damn sure.
Yancy Medeiros is going to be facing Li Qinglang at UFC Fox 23.
Okay. That sounds like one of those UFC Ultimate Fighter China guys. Can't remember whether he was one of the winners or the runner-ups.
But the fight's in Denver. I always shudder when I hear fights in Denver.
Elevation does create constipation.
Elevation is a bitch, is what that is.
I was trying to say it creates bowel movements for you because you get upset that these guys are going to gas out.
No, I get upset when they put a heavyweight fight in Denver.
Oh yeah.
Good Lord.
Please don't do that. Don't put anybody over 240 pounds in, or Mexico City for that matter. Mexico City is pretty high up there too.
I'd love to cover a show in Mexico City.
You'd love to cover it, but you wouldn't love the oxygen deprivation. You'd be sucking wind.
Yeah, that's fine. Diego Ferreira. He has accepted a punishment from USADA. He's been suspended for 17 months. So that's retroactive to April, so that's 8 months. So he still has 9 months, so that would be September of 2017.
All right, well, we won't worry about him for a while.
Nope. Leslie Smith. There's a quote going around that she basically says, whoever wins the belt at featherweight, it's going to be an interim title. Meaning she gets dibs, I guess, and she's going to win.
I didn't quite interpret it that way. I interpreted it more as like, whoever's holding that title is just holding it until Cyborg wants it.
You think she's talking about Cyborg and not herself?
I mean, yeah, she could be angling for the fight for herself, but if we're being realistic about it,
yeah, I know.
Anytime Cyborg wants that featherweight title and can make that weight cut, it's hers.
I think a Leslie Smith Cyborg #1 contenders fight's not out of the realm possibility.
I mean, on paper, I like that idea because I like Leslie Smith and I think she has a lot of heart. But in the actual application of it, I would be worried about her.
Really? That's strong. That's strong statement, though. Worried.
How many times have I told you that seeing Cyborg live is an experience you will never forget in your life?
It's like seeing Sheamus in the first time you see Sheamus live. You can't be that white in person. Holy crap, you're not kidding.
Yeah, that's the same thing as seeing Cyborg at cage side. You're like, well, oh my god, and then you just lose words after that.
Well, I'm curious to see if this fight happens in 2017, but
there are a lot of questions about what happens with Cyborg in 2017. There are so many unanswered questions right now.
All right, so when that's going to do it for the show. I was trying to think of something witty to say, but Stevie, you know what next week is?
Yeah, next week is Rousey Nunez.
And it's our anniversary show.
That's right, because we did our very first show in Montreal years and years ago.
It'll be our 6-year anniversary next week on this show.
Fantastic. And it will also be your birthday.
We don't mention that.
Kayfabe.
Kayfabe. We don't need to mention my birthday. Someone asked me how old I'm going to be, and I said I'm old enough to not answer that question.
Hey, you're not too old to enjoy a good fight, so that's all you need.
Absolutely. Well, for Steve, I know I speak for Stevie J on this. I wish everybody a happy holiday season, whatever you celebrate.
You know what? Let's just go ahead and say Merry Christmas. I'm tired of that being taboo. Merry Christmas, everybody.
For those who celebrate, Merry Christmas.
And happy holidays if you don't.
Absolutely.
Festivus for the rest of us, as they say.
Any closing words on your part, Chief?
I just want to wish everybody out there the best for their families and friends and loved ones, and hopefully we'll have a great year in 2017.
All right. Well, for Stevie J, I'm Peter Rage, a hardcore Canadian. Thanks for listening. Merry Christmas, and we'll see you next week. Never leave it to the judges.
See ya.